I did some calculations, and I think I have something like 4,500 hours across both Destiny games over multiple platforms, over obviously multiple years. I have not played the game since sometime after the launch of the final shape in 2024, and actually as of writing this exact sentence, that's exactly 2 years ago today. I just wanted to start with that because I know how transient a game like Destiny is. The sandbox, player base's sentiment, the content structure, it's ever shifting and kind of impossible to explain to someone who even dares to go outside for a few months for a cigarette. I know because that person is currently me.
Well, of course I know him. He's me.
I made a simple video announcing my dramatic return to the game and to YouTube a few days ago. I had not much to really say at that point other than I'm back, because to be honest, it's been a while since I had to coalesce thoughts together like this, and at that point I hadn't even downloaded the game yet. For anyone who doesn't know, so like basically all of you, I lapsed from Destiny after the final shape, basically on purpose. I think I even made a video of that at the time. I knew prior to the release that it would be a good time for me to just jump off, start something new, and I kind of likened it to my relationship with the Marvel movies after Avengers Endgame finished, because I was watching those movies for 10 years. They built up and eventually tore down Thanos in a pretty nice spectacle at the end. Not an easy thing to land with so much content, time, and pressure on you. The same can mostly be said with Bungie and the final shape, in my opinion. They pulled off something I'm sure a lot of people doubted, and it was an awesome send-off to the ongoing narrative thread, villain, years of build-up. But unfortunately, because of the grandeur of what came before, what came after, I already knew it would never excite me. It was the same with Marvel. When I saw Spider-Man, I don't know, was it Spider-Man 3, Far From Home, whatever, fighting Mysterio, I just, it was right after Endgame, and I just couldn't bring myself to be hyped up about it. Just an unfortunate nature of the setup they had, of all the dominoes they had laid down. And when returning back to Destiny, how can we defeat a godlike being with world-ending threats and just months later get excited by whatever cosmic squabble pops up next? I'm aware the narrative threads left open by Bungie, assumingly by design, to ensure there was some road left to travel for whenever they needed it, wherever they went next. Problem is, I just didn't care, and I was happy about that in a way. Time to end my Destiny treadmill, watch it from afar like an ex-lover happy to see his old partner succeeding in life and thriving against whatever comes next. The narrative no longer pulled me in, no more seasonal drops or mods could excite me like it used to, and the seasonal model of content was just getting dry and overused in my opinion, despite it being totally one-time use and, temporary due to the vaulting system they had in place. I was just done. I had enough, and that's okay. I didn't see that as a bad thing. In the meantime, I had become kind of invested in what Bungie was doing with Marathon. I even made a video about it, what I was expecting from it, after this amazing announcement trailer, and what a roller coaster that ended up being, with a really cool cinematic trailer that had me 100% hooked, followed by a very drab and disappointing alpha preview that came out, and then finally the final product being super solid by all metrics, basically, whether you like the game from a quote unquote fun perspective or not, but let's talk about that later. So when I heard the news that Bungie were shutting down future development plans for Destiny 2 and essentially putting it on life support, it kinda stoked a fire inside me around the game again. I was totally out of touch and, to be honest, uninterested in the more minor or technical details around the game still, build crafting, balancing, meta, loot, progression. But I kind of became interested in monitoring the overall health of the game again. To put it simply, I was just a little bit sad to see what was happening. And like I mentioned in that little previous video I made about coming back to my channel, I just wanted to jump back in and just take one last look at the game before the end, prior to the June 9th update, and hopefully also after, to show my support and just see where things are right now. And actually, to add to that, this is not my first time coming back to Destiny after some short breaks away. I dipped in and out before the launch of the Taken King in D1, for example. Like a lot of people, bailed pretty hard on the game after D2 Vanilla. It was really Forsaken that piqued my interest again at that point, and I even took a little break around the launch of the Witch Queen, for no particular reason. Just, I needed a break, I guess. But this time, it definitely felt different. I really didn't think I was coming back, and when I did come back, I really felt like I was coming back to somewhere I did not recognize. To be fair, it was my longest break since launch, but even saying that, something definitely felt off. It wasn't just the lack of the director. What what the hell? It wasn't the usual confusion about jumping into narrative beats like you're starting season 4 episode 7 of a show. It wasn't the 8th change to progression and leveling, which I assume is ultimately slapping new numbers on things and calling it a day anyway. It didn't feel like Destiny anymore. That could maybe be due to the fact that lately I've only consumed Destiny through the lens of nostalgia, watching reels about the good old days, listening to essays about what Bungie left behind in Destiny 1, recapping all of the campaigns, lost to the void of sunsetting on Aztecross's stream, but it genuinely felt so foreign to me that I found myself saying, if I was a new player jumping into this for the first time on a free weekend or on recommendation of a friend or on a sale or whatever, I would just drop it. And before anyone asks, I do not mean like this from the new light perspective and the onboarding catastrophe that we still have in the game. That's a whole other topic. It's not what's being removed or presented in a confusing way anymore. It's actually the things they're adding. And to look into that a bit deeper, so what did they add? Well, the first thing I did launching the game for the first time in 2 years was play the intro quests for the latest 2 expansions, which I missed. The Edge of Fate and Renegades, both part of the Year of Prophecy and the content meant to continue the universe post the final shape. Having only dipped my toes into each, watched some trailers, Vidocs about the content, please take into account that this is just the perspective of a person dropping in, giving their perspective, of course with the caveat that I used to jump into any new Destiny 2 content with zero hesitation for the better part of a decade. Having said all that, the delivery of both expansions and their offerings just feels really off to me. In the past, Bungie has admitted, like literally directly from the man himself, Luke Smith, that they leaned way too much into FOMO content. Well, the seasonal driven model just didn't play out the way they wanted, dropping sometimes fun, I guess, seasonal activities, narrative spaces, only to have them just evaporate after a year. It just wasn't a sustainable model for either the player or the developer. There's huge dev costs for just temporary, short-term, in-game gains. I'm glad to see this rhetoric evolve from then, but the content I see being dropped now just feels off the mark, and whether it's permanently present in the game files or not, I just don't like it. The Edge of Fate was the first off the bat for me, and while the narrative thread felt pretty interesting, I guess, after my initial taste meeting Lodi and Ikora and this whole concept around the Nime, it just didn't come close to hitting the high cinematic mark we had in the past during the Light and Dark saga, albeit that is kind of understandable, but still, it just plays like a spin-off episode of your favorite show. Maybe this is intentional and understood by the community, but it just left me coming back feeling very underwhelmed, still remembering the higher highs of older expansions. So while I will not judge or talk about the new narrative too much, it was promising, if not a little underwhelming. But where my real issue stemmed from was with that, what at least I perceived as the primary gameplay hook or addition in this expansion that was offered up. It was basically Super Monkey Ball Guardians. Why? I mean, the ball, I cannot believe I'm discussing a goddamn Guardian ball, but the ball controlled and felt as good as a ball can. I guess like they did a good job, good ball mechanics, Bungie. But the concept of turning into a ball and using it to solve super simple platforming puzzles and utilizing it in combat to a very rudimentary degree felt so far removed from anything I ever imagined or anticipated, but more importantly, wanted in a Destiny game. This game has absolutely industry-leading gameplay abilities, movement tech, content playgrounds to bash all that kit around in. Why, in arguably one of the most important expansions for the series, because of the fact that it follows up the climax of the series to this point, why are we rolling around pipes in a ball? And then came Renegades. This one I was more aware of because I recall seeing the reveal and honestly throwing the biggest eye roll I could at my monitor. What are we doing here? Like, the lore and the universe of Destiny are one of its strongest points in my opinion. Sure, the narrative storytelling in the actual game often fell far below the bar, but the background world in which they were built in was absolutely mind-blowing. I never paid much attention to lore videos from any IP in my life, even despite the regular missteps such as the overly vague vanilla D1 story or, you know, just like Nimrod in general. This initial reveal trailer and the small portion of it that I actually played just totally unimmersed me from that world and gave me the impression that even Bungie somehow doubt the strength of their own writing chops. Why do they need a collaboration like this? Why Star Wars? It doesn't fit. It doesn't make the game feel any better. It just makes it feel closer to something like Fortnite in my head instead of a world that I get totally absorbed by when I jump into it. So for the first time, I'm coming back to a game after a long absence where I've taken a look at everything I missed, and honestly, I just don't want to even buy it. I have zero interest in playing it, and I think for sure a combination of different factors are, building that conclusion. There's definitely some boredom with the game after such a long time, inevitably, no fault of Bungie. There's nothing they could do to avoid that. The knowledge that the game is shutting down. I mean, purchasing right now anything for financial reasons doesn't make sense because they're already announcing, a big mega pack with all the DLC, and I'm sure that's going to impact sales at the moment, but the biggest reason is just that it doesn't even look fun. And I know that this has all probably been discussed. I am not trying to kick them when they're down. I promise I'm getting to a point, but something went wrong. Since I can remember in Destiny 2, both in my own videos and thoughts, but also pretty much across the board of content being made about the game, one of the most consistent requests or complaints made about it was that Bungie just needed to refocus and repair the core playlist of content in the game. We needed more strikes and better or more rewarding ways to play them. We needed more Crucible maps, period. Gunplay in Destiny carries so much of the weight in PvP, so I do not think modes and rewards are even an issue when it comes to PvP. Gambit? Well, I guess, why not? Just add more Gambit. I guess there's probably someone out there who would play it, maybe. If you hear people today reminiscing about Destiny in the fallout of the news in particular, it's almost a guarantee that someone's going to mention that, oh, I remember playing strikes on end and end for hours and hours with my buddies, or jumping on the OG Iron Banner back in the day and getting my, arse handed to me. I think in this post final shape stage of Destiny's lifespan, reinforcing these things, the game's core pillars, was the obvious choice for maintaining a stable player base. With the game entering some form of hibernation while we wait for the next actual big thing to drop, aka Destiny 3, I think this would have been the smartest way to keep things humming, as it's, as the saying goes. But instead it feels like we just kept getting more Eververse skins, weird content updates, and rinse and repeat seasonal activities that are forgettable as they are numerous. Unfortunately, the ship has well and firmly sailed already for the time being, unless the community responds to the player count on June 9th or the petition can do anything to change Sony minds about the IP. Nobody wants another Bloodborne situation with Destiny gathering dust on a shelf somewhere for the next decade. But looking back, it feels, hindsight 2020, we should have been receiving the things that people have been asking for since Destiny 1. And with all that being said already, it's time to address the proverbial elephant in the room: Marathon. I like Marathon. I think it's a fun and well-made video game. Is it for everyone? No. Should it probably have costed as much as it did to make? No. Did it affect the state of Destiny 2? Yes. Is it the reason Destiny 2 is where it is? No. I think we can pretty much lay Destiny 2's fate at the feet of those fine suited gentlemen with the car collections and savvy deal-making skills who have already long sailed into the sunset. I could talk more about that angle, but honestly it just kind of makes my blood boil a little, so let's just shelve that for now. We know what happened there, not much more to be said. But there has been a lot of focus on Marathon in recent months, and particularly recent weeks, and there's been this almost religious level schism in the community with infighting from fans of both games, who ironically were basically, the same people at one point very recently, blaming the failings of their game on that of the other and vice versa. And I think it's just not true, unnecessary, and in the long run, it's going to be something most people in that community are going to regret. In my opinion, Marathon did so much that Destiny 2 has failed to do in recent years. Despite Marathon's recorded bumpy development in the early years and on the build up to launch, I think the team has really stepped up in more recent times, and the results are clear as day. Marathon has a very clear vision. Its art design, at least the not stolen parts, is cohesive.
Oh God, they try to drown me in this hole. I cannot see.
Absolutely unique in the gaming space and in sci-fi media as a whole. I would suggest its gunplay is stellar, and while maybe not as good as Destiny 2, it's not far off the quality achieved there, and that's already a game ahead of the competition by a significant margin. The maps and game mode are well designed, intricate, and deliver pretty much everything someone should expect from an extraction shooter. Ironically, especially at launch, one of the more common, consistent criticisms was that the Marathon cosmetics and skins were pretty lackluster and just not worth buying. Something I think people would have yearned for in Destiny 2 in recent years. The game might be hardcore, might turn off casual players, but it's designed that way. It's the vision, a move that, likely would not really be striking such a sore spot if we lived in an alternate world where Bungie didn't squander what they had with Destiny 2 and both projects were running simultaneously. It's the collapse of Destiny that undermines Marathon and creates a negative discourse around it, not vice versa. Of course, it did nothing to help itself on the build-up towards launch with all of the drama, but I hope my point is clear. Marathon isn't the problem. It's just truly not. So in the end, I think Bungie should be learning from Marathon and not scrapping it like so many Reddit posts have been asking for. I know the community sentiment is at an all-time low right now. Everyone wants to blame something. Marathon is just the easy fall guy. Nothing is stating that Destiny sequels are under construction or ever will be, but I don't know why. Something just tells me this is not the end of the story. Bungie have proven that they've still got the chops with Marathon. Even if what they delivered is not for fans of Destiny in particular, the people who enjoy Marathon love it. I hope that Sony recognizes that talent alongside the cries from community to bring back the beloved Destiny franchise. And who knows, maybe at the 2027 Game Awards we're all going to be stunned into silence with a teaser trailer for Destiny 3. Who knows? Stranger things have happened. As for Bungie, they should take the learning that focusing on what they know, what they excel at, gunplay, artistry, visuals, cool weapons, class design, they should just take all that and get back into making Destiny 3 again. Make a single player campaign, Strikes, Crucible, fuck it, Gambit. An onboarding system that is foolproof across many expansions, designed with a clear foresight that this will always act as an onboarding system and they won't have this confusion of people jumping back in. A, well orchestrated and designed progression system that's going to work from the start and that we don't need 5 reboots, redesigns, 20 materials, 16 different menus. Just start taking everything they've learned from the beginning so that the vanilla experience is what players want. They have enough feedback and experience to do that. A pullback from all of this Eververse nonsense. We don't need this many skins in the store. But I remember distinctly buying skins in Destiny 2, closer to vanilla when I felt, okay, I've put a lot of time into the game. They've delivered some cool content. I'm going to, kind of push the favor back a little bit by buying something. Nowadays, it's totally flipped. It's just all Eververse ads, super cool things locked behind pay barriers. It's not good. It's just not good. So couple all that with, a new narrative, maybe with new characters in a new solar system, whatever. We just need more Destiny in the way it used to be imagined. And in my opinion, with everything that's happened over the past decade, that is low-hanging fruit in terms of, a design perspective for Bungie. They have more than enough talent to achieve something like that. Let's just hope they get the chance to go and grab it one more time.